spread around and believed and repeated over and over and over again, that can be, I guess, neutralized with just a quick Google search. Like not even getting deep into research, just a quick Google search. And so what we kind of wanted to do was just talk about some of these things that are being spread and believed, and why people aren't doing the research, what led to that, how do we neutralize it? Like, how do we thrive in an age where we have unlimited access to, yet it seems to do a little bit of work required to find out the truth before they speak on something. And like I'm the kind of person, like one of my biggest pet peeves is when people speak on things that they don't know what they're talking about. Like it's one thing to offer an opinion, facts, and you have no clue what you're talking about. So it's like if you don't care enough to do the research, don't speak on the subject. It's like that's how I feel. So we're just gonna kind of dive in and figure out like what's going on, what happened, what led here, and we don't have all the answers, but we do have different perspectives that we want to share. And so I'm gonna throw on over to Dom. He's gonna kick us off in some prayer, and we're gonna jump right in. But before Dom, if you're tuned in right now, go ahead, give us a like, share. We want to bring as many people as possible into this conversation with us.
All right. Thank you, God, for this time that we have in order to have a conversation like this. I ask that whoever is in the room, whoever's listening now, whoever's listening later, will be able to take this information, learn something from it, and apply it in whatever way it needs to be applied. Thank you for blessing this conversation, and in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So, one of the things that we've been doing lately, and we'll be doing for the foreseeable future, is kicking these conversations off with icebreakers. And this icebreaker, it actually kind of like, it was really simple. And so what I wanted to do was find out what is you guys' that's probably the way I'm saying it. You guys' favorite alternative fact. And let's go ladies first. So Chris, can you start us off?
Wow.
I'm joking. We're buddies. We go way back, so I like to mess with him. Everybody.
Personally, the one that gets me the most is that 9/11 didn't happen, or specific parts of 9/11 didn't happen, such as, the fact that the 9/11 was an inside job, jet fuel can't melt steel beams, plane didn't hit the Pentagon, things of that nature.
Okay. Miss Jessie, what about you?
I think I'm going to go with Bill Gates created the vaccine to microchip us, only for the irony of half the time whoever posts that online is posting it from their phone.
If you think about it, it makes sense. Why not use the vaccine to microchip us? Like, it's not like we have these little devices.
It does not make sense at all. Don't give credibility to this.
It makes sense if you don't think about
it. Okay, so what is research? And I don't need like Merriam-Webster's definition or something you put out of the thesaurus, but like for you, what is research? What does it look like when you do research, or when you're listening at somebody say, "Hey, I've done research on this topic. Here's the information that I've come up with." What are some of the things that you look for that they've done to say, "Okay, you actually did your research"? Let's go with Jessie.
Well, I think just in general, research is, you look into sources of material to find out if something is a fact. But the important thing with research, and where I want people to remember, is that you can't research in order to just prove yourself right. You have so many people who will find whatever source they can that's not credible. It'll be from, I don't know, like if we're talking about vaccines and the microchip thing, someone will send you a source that says like vaccinesarethe devil.com and be like, see, this site told me that they're microchipping us with the vaccine. And it's like, that's not a credible site. You need to find credible sources. And that's what really frustrates me, because some people will say, I did my research, and you look at where their research came from, and it's, BS sites that are conspiracy theory sites or have been proven to be false.
How does one know the difference between a credible source and not? Because like you said, there's a lot of people posting a lot of things. One of the funniest things I've seen over the years is how many people have posted information from the Babylon Bee, and like they're so upset about it. And it's like literally down at the bottom, it's like this is a satire site. But so for people, I guess some of them like that would label down at the bottom. But for the ones that don't, how would somebody say, okay, this agrees with me and this is a credible source, or this agrees with me but this isn't credible? How do they know the difference?
It'll depend on what you're researching. So if you're posting something that has scientific basis, then obviously you need to go to the scientific journals and things of that nature to actually find a credible source. Look into your source. You know, if you are on a website and you're wondering, like, funny you bring up Babylon Bee. I literally had to tell someone just the other day that something that they posted was from the Babylon Bee. It was about a tweet that Netflix had posted about them being almost pedophilia free, and she was like, see, this is why we need to cancel Netflix. I was like, that's the Babylon Bee. Like, if you go into their site, you can literally find where it says, like, we are a satire site. So you have to research into your research, and that's something that most people don't really want to do. They don't want to take that extra step.
Yeah. What about you, Christopher? What's your response?
I was going to expand off of Jesse's point, if that's okay first. Another thing when it comes to credible sources is not just about what exactly their field of expertise is, but what is their track record beforehand and the things that they've talked about. One of the big things that I love to bring to people's attention is when people talk about Vice News. And they're like, oh, Vice News reported on it. And some people are just like, okay, well, who the heck are they? And other people are like, well, they're a news agency. Well, Vice News was founded by the same guy who founded the Proud Boys. You know, so I mean, like, there's a question of credibility when they're talking about is this racist or not? Well, maybe we should, look at not just we can use their information, but we're going to back it up with other information, like compounding information. You shouldn't find just one source. You should find multiple sources, and those sources should be able to support one another. And if they can't, they're probably not really a good source to start with. So I just wanted to expand there. For me, what research looks like is I do a lot of it drives me absolutely insane to do it, but I feel that it's important to get the full scope. I do a lot of research from the point of view of the person I'm going to be having a conversation with, or just a counter, view to my own. And it's important to do that because you need to see where, to put it in very simple terms, you need to see where the enemy is coming from. You need to see where the enemy is looking, right? And, what they think is true and where they're finding their facts, so that when they do come at you with those facts, you can find your facts that eviscerate theirs and move on with your life, But for me, research also has a lot of counter research to it.
So before we move on to the next question, Dom, our guest and favorite, she just brought up in the comments how people often confuse op-eds with facts. Is that something that you guys have seen a lot? What's that like? Well, actually, Jesse, will you tell us the difference in an op-ed and a fact?
Well, kind of like what we said, with a fact, there's sources, there's evidence, there's multiple sources to, like Christopher said, make your point. It's not one thing that you just said, like, oh, I think, well, this came from this site, so it must be true. You can also look elsewhere and find information that confirms what that's saying. Whereas with op-eds, that's more like commentary of a point.
Op-eds are your opinions. They are a point of view, and that's not to be dismissed, right? Because point of view, perception, scope, all of that has an absolute place when it comes to a conversation, especially when we're talking about, when we're talking about researching, right? We're not talking about researching which peanut butter is better, right? In this way that we're talking about things that really matter, such as police brutality. We're talking about things such as getting vaccinated. It's important to know where, the point of view comes from. A lot like when it comes to these COVID vaccines, there's a lot of people that have quite a few concerns about them. And why is that? And we can absolutely go back and look at the American government in regards to rush vaccinations and see where we used military as lab rats, where we took antibodies from a Black woman and used them to make wonderful cures for millions of people and didn't give them a dime until long after she was dead, right? Like there is a place for op-eds, and it's to give people the point of view from those who are concerned, or from those who are looking at those who are concerned and being like, okay, you guys are a little bit wacky, there's a place for it, but they do not dismiss fact. They do not dismiss the cement, right? You can't just say, okay, well, my opinion is different. I feel this way about this, therefore it just doesn't happen. Like, I feel like air is a myth. Like, well, you can feel that way all you want. At the end of the day, you still breathe,
The other thing for me with op-ed, I think it kind of goes back to what Jesse was saying about, or even just being a diligent reader in general. I feel like a lot of people don't realize when they're reading an op-ed, find an op-ed, not really know that it's an op-ed. It's just one of the first few links that agrees with them, and then they put it out there. But they don't realize, hey, this is not based in any sort of fact. This is not there may be facts in there, but this is not some, peer-reviewed, anything like that. Like, this is, like you said, Chris, this is how I feel. I put it out there, but me as the reader, I have to be able to look and see, okay, this is someone's opinion versus this is something that's been studied and put out. Go ahead, Chris.
So it's not, when we talk about op-eds, right, we kind of think to ourselves, like reading an article online, right, or at somebody's blog, because there's 1,000 of those in the world. But I mean, like, we have that in television news as well. And it's so, like, if you're not paying attention, it's so seamless in there with the news. There is no, like, we are now going to switch over to an opinion about, no, we brought in these experts and we've got their, to give us the skinny on this and that and this, and then, like, you just assume they just keep you there in that headspace of this is the news, and it's really just somebody's opinion, somebody who used to matter, or somebody who, yeah, sure, they have insight and their opinion does matter, but they are not fact. So
See, you bringing that up makes me think of the Meghan Markle Prince Harry situation, and specifically Piers Morgan and Good Morning Britain. And yesterday, he brought in a Black man who had been to the has been friends with the royal family and everything, to prove, like, Meghan's lying about racism, because this Black man who met the royal family said they were lovely to him.
Right.
Look at my Black man over there.
Right.
Look at him go.
Because it was presented on a news show, a lot of people were like, she's lying. The news just told me they had this source from this man.
And no one knows who this man is. No one knows.
They're like, the news brought him on. He must be credible.
Right. I've got sources, tons of them. Where they at, though? Where they at, though?
You're a mess.
Forgive me, y'all.
But kind of writing off of that, but what is the importance of being informed before sharing these beliefs? I think that it was a good segue, because, like you said, that's a good point that I don't really think about much. We have experts on the news, all the time, and they're speaking so eloquently and with so much conviction, and they have this history, so they must be right. But that's not always the case. We still go out, we take that, and we still go out and pass that information along. But what is the importance of being well informed before you go and pass that information along?
Well, I think first and foremost, if you're going to share something that you're presenting as fact, then you need to be informed correctly with credible sources of that fact, because some things that get shared can be extremely dangerous. Just top of the line, like if you're going to share something, become well informed about it. And I think human nature, no one likes to be wrong, right? And that's why a lot of people are quick to share things, because they're like, oh, that proves my point. I was right this whole time. Let me share that.
Right.
But then you get proven wrong. If you just if you took the time to become well informed on the things that you're sharing a fact on, an opinion is a different thing. If you're just sharing your opinion, it's better to be well informed before forming an opinion, obviously, but it's your opinion. But if you are sharing facts, become well informed so that you don't have to be wrong. You don't have to experience that.
So that's kind of what happened to me. Like I've shared this multiple times, and I'll share it till the day I die because I'm not ashamed or embarrassed of it. I used to be one of those people who share things like just like what it agreed with the way I felt or the way I saw things. I'm like, cool. Sometimes or not so gently told me how wrong I'm out here being wrong all the time. We fall back on posting for a little bit, and then I got to this place where I'm going to speak on something from the basis of facts. I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like, and I think one of the things that
Mhm.
don't know, you're allowed to live in that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but I'm down to get back to you, and that's something that
Yeah, real, especially. I think that kind of plays a part in it too, because we get to this point where we gotta say something. If I don't say something, I'm gonna look like an idiot. They're going to think they're right. I'm gonna lose this argument, and I can't have that. So I'm gonna just speak whatever comes to mind, and I'll go find something that agrees with it later. And
See, and the more well informed you are, you can be more quick with those responses.
yeah. Right. What about you, Christopher? And I want to go ahead, Christopher, because I'll just talk all day.
Go ahead.
I was, when she said the more well informed you are, the more you can speak on these things. One of the things that I found is like, as I keep having conversation with people, the same thing, like okay, people that are on the same side of the aisle. I have those conversations with them. They're like, "Well, you were so ready to have a response," and it's like, I have the. I was ready for you to say that.
Yeah.
Tit for tat with you. I knew you were going to say that because y'all all say that. All of you uninformed people say the same thing.
There are some topics that I swear it's like going through a script.
It really is, and it's like, hold on, like all get on. But it's cool that they could all be on the same page. So that's four negatives and a positive. But Chris, the floor is yours.
So for me, when it comes to being well informed, right? I think that before you even get to the being well informed part, you need to get to the do you actually care part, right?
Yeah.
I think that there is, and I don't think, I know, right? Like there are a large number of people who have opinions on things that they don't really care about, and they're just here to argue, they just want to tell you their opinion on it. They don't want to really argue any facts with you. They just want to give you their opinion. And it was kind of like I had a conversation with a fella, a very short conversation. I think it was like 4 comments long. He was like, wasn't Walt Disney a Nazi? And, or a Nazi sympathizer. And I was like, okay, well, obviously you're missing out on a few things. So let me go ahead and divulge a whole bunch of information that was easily looked up on Google. Literally took me 5 seconds, right? I knew this already. I knew this information already. I just went and I got my sources, which is a really big part about research, is knowing where to go get your sources after you already know these things. Because I know things, I can just spew it out to you. I can just keep telling you, but that doesn't mean that I am a good source. Let me provide you with sources, right?
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, so does that mean he wasn't a Nazi sympathizer? And I was like, listen, I've given you enough information for you to start your journey into researching whether Walt Disney was a Nazi sympathizer or not. If you care, you'll continue to research. If you don't, this is where your journey ends. And he was like, you're right, I don't care. But he cared enough to make that initial comment, right? And why? What was the point of that comment? And there's so many things that we as Americans, because we think we're so darn important. See, I'm learning. Charles is always getting on to me about my language around his kids. I'm learning. We think our opinion is so darn important because we're Americans, right? And no, your opinion doesn't always matter. We don't need to hear it all the time. You're uninformed. You did no research. You just said something just to say something. You wasted oxygen. You wasted my time. And
It sounds good sometimes. Sometimes they say
to be
it's not
uneducated.
Hey, sometimes I think about that blissful ignorance.
Well, there's no such thing as blissful ignorance, right? Because you can exist in your blissful ignorance, but what's happening, the world is still turning, the thing is still happening, right? There is no blissful ignorance. There is just the fact that you have chosen not to care, and that's okay. Just stop giving your opinion if you don't care.
Yeah, that's what I said in the opening. Just shut up.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
I'm sure you guys have seen on the news about changing the name of, my God, just forgot the highway. It left me. In Fredericksburg. Yeah, changing Jefferson Davis Highway to Emancipation Highway, or whatever they're changing the name to. So many people have jumped into that conversation to talk about, racing history, blah, 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 that don't actually really care. They just want to, I don't know, make their voice heard in some way and
Ask
be
that person.
annoying.
Ask that person on the spot. Who was Jefferson? Who was he?
I did.
Who was he?
This last conversation, I did. I was like, who is he? What did he do? And they were like, well, racing history. I was like,
Racing history. Who was he?
That's what you come into a lot. It's just speaking because they can. And I've found that the people that are the most consistent with their speech,
mhm.
and it's hard. Ultimately, don't care about, because I feel like if you care, you will do the.
I will say that there is something to be said about intrigue, right? It's okay to be interested. It's okay to have something that I say spur a thought in you, and you be like, to continue on the conversation there. But to simply state your opinion as fact, and then to fight on your opinion, to die on your hill of no information, that's different, right? And that's, I welcome anybody to come to me and have a conversation. I love debating. It's one of my favorite things to do. I research things every day just to research things. Today I watched a video on the difference between fusion and fission, and how long we're going to be until we can take that next step into nuclear technology. And why? I'm never going to do anything with that. I'm not ever going to be some sort of nuclear engineer. I'm just interested in learning things. So I'm constantly trying to learn new things. I welcome anybody to come at me and have a conversation, like always. But you're going to come with fact. And if you don't have fact, I'm more than willing to share down a road of research with you. Like, I'm not going to state my sources as the one fact. We'll explore counter arguments to my idea as well. Like, we will, but just being like, yeah, but Bill Gates is really the enemy here. Like, no, no, you're just, it's dumb. Stop being dumb. You're much smarter than this. America general education system does not put us at that level of dumb. You got this. I believe in you. I believe in you.
So what I want to kind of bring up now, all the different circles that you find yourself in. Since you started being somebody who like, it's really difficult to be about, so like how has that, or has it?
Well, I always stand by the fact that I won't let someone live in ignorance. So if they post something stupid, I will be there. And I'm not mean most of the time. Like, I try to come extremely kindly and just be like, here, this is not correct. But let's look into the research to explain why it's not correct. And I will admit that over the past, say, 3 or so years, my circle has seem to just drop to people who are willing to be well informed in research, because for whatever reason, the uninformed don't like to hear that they're wrong, kind of like we talked about before. So as of right now, not much is different, because the people that are around me and a part of my circle are also people who look into what they're talking about, who are passionate about the same things that I'm passionate about. But to start, I mean, I've had a lot of people who post very stupid things. And this past year, especially, I had a lot of people that just delete me. I will never delete someone or take someone out of my life, because I stand by, like, I will educate you. You will be educated in some way, shape, or form. But they have removed themselves from my life, which is sad, because now sometimes I think about it, I'm like, oh, you're just living in your and it, like Chris said, it's not blissful ignorance, and it's not even ignorance. It's like you're choosing
Willful
ignorance.
It is. You are choosing to continue to live a life of a lie, just because what, you didn't want to be wrong.
That's kind of like my my Nindo too. Shout out to Naruto. Like, my ninja way is to not let people live in ignorance. like it's one of those things. Like, it's really funny, like, to see me not. My wife would just catch me, and she's like, "Who you arguing with now?" I'm like, "No, I'm not arguing with anybody."
I'm educating.
Right. Yeah. And it's so funny because, like you said, this past year, one that has been overwhelmingly filled with alternative facts, which is the cleverest way of saying a lie. Like, and there were so many people. I don't know if y'all experienced the same thing, but there was like this period of like 4 months when we were like finishing up with racism because it ended and moving into the political conversations, where it was like, I'm not going to delete anybody just because they think something differently than me. And I must have seen 20 people say that. Like you said, I don't delete people. It's just every time I see that I know isn't true. And I'm not like Chris. I'm not somebody who just sits back and researches things all day, every day. If I care about it, I'll get informed. If I don't, I'll engage in a conversation where it's like opinion based, but I won't try to spit facts on it. It's just, it's whatever to me. And so it's like, if you're saying something that's just wrong, if I know that it's wrong, I feel like you should know way more. Because, yeah, it's not a lot of work required. You know, I think last week I was about the person, like, well, this many people came out to vote and was, but only this many people were registered. And he's somebody like we were talking about earlier, credible sources, right? He's not a credible source. So when he posted that, I said, I wonder how wrong he is, because he's usually wrong. And I went to go do the research, but before I did it, somebody had already posted a link to the actual numbers in the comments. And he's just like, no, you're just making this up, right? And so I'm like, I wonder how much of a Google search it takes to get to this. So I typed in like how many people were registered, and honestly, before I even finished the word registered, it put a bunch of different states. One of them was Wisconsin, so I didn't even have to type all the words. I typed maybe 4.5 words, clicked, and then 3 more clicks led me to the exact numbers. And I'm like, that wasn't hard at all. It took not even 30 seconds, but for some reason, well, not some reason, it agreed with the narrative that he wanted. So he shared it, and it's just like, bro. And yeah, so what happened is I said, bro, this is wrong. A quick Google search would have, and then I was told how Google, I forget the exact word that was used, but basically Google isn't reliable when you're going to look up stuff. You got to use, I don't know, it was like Flippy or Blippy, or it was something crazy that I'm supposed to use now instead of Google. And I'm like, all right, man. It's like, but Chris, go ahead. How is it affecting your circle?
Quite a few topics there. I wanted to
Yeah, do
down a
it.
couple real quick. A great tool I'm going to give you guys all to use in the rest of your life. Let me Google that for you.
That's my
It's
favorite.
a website, and you literally type in what it was, whatever the thing is, right? How many registered voters were in Wisconsin during the 2020 election, and it generates a link for you to give that person. And when they click on that, it shows them how to Google something. It has their little cursor, it goes over to the search bar, it clicks on the search bar, it types out the word, and then it hits the little search icon, and it says, see, was that so difficult? And it brings them to the Google site, to the Google search page for that search. It's wonderful. I send it to so many people, and it always gets a really good, you're such a smart ass response. So,
Easily.
you also had commented on how this last year there was an uptick in alternate facts, or just alternate news, fake news, all of that kind of stuff. I would like to argue that it's not an uptick. The only difference was where it went in regards to the limelight, because Alex Jones has always been a thing. I used to watch Alex Jones when I joined the military just to laugh at some of the stupid things he would say, like the aliens and the lizard people. Like,
Who's Alex Jones? Is he like
Alex Jones? Alex Jones is
He's Tucker Carlson?
InfoWars.
No.
Word?
No,
Yeah, you're missing out.
he is like,
I'll stick to Joe Patrick.
No, that's not. That's not
Don't
right.
even concern yourself with, just don't even bring it up.
you should absolutely do so. He's he's great entertainment, right? But there are people who believe in the things that he says. He believes that the water in our water supply is tainted in such a way to mind control people. He sells his own water. It's silver water, so that it purifies your body of all the toxins the government's putting inside of you.
From the water.
Yeah.
No shit. I swear to God, this is
Real quickly,
But
I
Alex
just want
Jones,
to
Alex
highlight.
Jones is wonderful entertainment.
Pardon the interruption. I just want to highlight how you just brought something up. I know nothing about it, and I offered no opinion. It's that simple.
It's that easy. You didn't go, no, Alex Jones is completely credible.
But the uptick in fake news or alternate facts or whatever, that's not new. It's just that they were given a platform that gave them a voice. They've always been there. These ideas have been there. I mean, we literally said jet fuel can't melt steel beams a couple of years after 9/11, right? And so that's been a very long-term thing. It's not an uptick. It's mostly about we gave them Donald Trump, and he screamed it at the top of every opportunity he could.
For future references, on this page, we call him "He Who Must Not Be Named."
Oh,
Listen,
That's an insult to Lord Voldemort. That is an insult to Lord Voldemort.
That's what I said when you said it last time.
I understand that might be your point of view, but at the end of the day, you're not going to reach those people if you say that the one that they believe most in, his name can't be said here. That's just me personally. But
That's fair.
when it comes to, so back to the original question at hand, I'm sorry, I went off on like wanting to touch bases real quick. Talking about the importance of research and how it has affected my circle. I've told my background story a couple times, but I moved around a lot. Public school wise, as a kid, I moved around a lot, and I never went to one school more than a year in my life. And with that, my education wasn't all that great. When I graduated high school, I wasn't the smartest kid around. And when I joined the military, I definitely realized that people who had an accent like I did weren't exactly the smartest people. And I said, I should probably get rid of my accent, and I should probably wise up and be a little bit smarter and figure out what these smart people are doing, these people who are much more successful than those who sound like me. And for those wondering, I had a Southern accent, and when I'm drunk or talking to my grandmother, it comes out. With that, I learned myself when I started to research all these things that I used to think were true were not, right? And these are things that I was raised with that I thought they were just innate truths, things that were just, of course, this is what it is. And I never researched it, right? And there's all sorts of things that I, came to realize were true or not true, or just, complete fabrications. And when you start challenging people who believe those things are innate truths, you find that they will get rid of you very quickly, right? Because they don't want to challenge you. And much like Jess said, they will delete you, they will stop talking to you, they will shun you. And that's how that happens, that absolutely happens. You guys are talking about not deleting people because, you're very much into, educating people, right? I will delete people because I can only deal with so much ignorance. I'm on an upward trajectory. I don't need your negativity in my life. If you are incapable, and let's be completely, understanding here. I'm not talking about like, oh, you believe Donald Trump was, or he who shall not be named, was the best president in the world. Okay, well, I'm going to delete you. No. If you are incapable of having a conversation and doing research and constructively talking about these things, then yeah, I have no time for you. I'm, like I said, upward trajectory, right? Like, we're not looking to be drugged down into the mud. We're not looking to be, I don't need that in my life. I got plenty of other stuff. I'm not trying to be liked by everybody. I don't like everybody. Why would I want everybody to like me? So.
Yeah, that's kind of how I used to be of the mind of, I feel like once I got to a point in my life where I started to understand I need to read things and things aren't what I thought they were, I was like, oh, I got to tell everybody. But once I started to realize that at least my circle was not willing in the slightest bit to learn, so I can't keep wasting my oxygen like that. So I'm with you there. Is it ever acceptable to speak on a subject without having done any sort of research on it?
Extreme circumstances.
Okay, like how?
Holocaust is bad. Genocide is bad.
Okay.
I don't think that anybody needs to do any more research on that one, right? Everybody
Yeah.
got that. Like killing people in mass due to their race, religion. It does not matter what race, religion, nationality they came from. Like it's just bad. Like don't do that, right? Mutually assured destruction. That's bad. We shouldn't do that, right? But when it comes to things like police brutality, defunding the police forces, overhauling the IRS, things like that, the WHO, no, you need to be educated when you talk about these things because these things have complex cogs and gears to it that every point of view needs to be taken into account and figured out. Your opinion, how you feel, has a place, but it's a place that also needs to be educated. There's other things that need to be factored in there.
You got for us, Ms. Barnes.
I mean, yeah, I think if you want to start a conversation and say like, I want to get involved in this subject, I haven't done my research yet, but I'm going to, sure, as long as you make it clear that you are going to start to become informed in it. If there's something you're interested in learning about and you don't know about and you want to jump in the conversation, then you jump in and say, hey, can someone provide me with books, articles, whatever you want, so I can start looking into this. But if you are going to speak on something, especially if it's a big issue or it's a fact, you have to at least have done, and like we've talked about before, you don't have to have a PhD in the subject,
Right.
but you at least have to be well enough informed that if you post something and someone's going to ask you a question about it, you can at least start the conversation, answer it in some way, provide a source to find the answer. Because I think so many people are just so willing to post something. And I've had people in my life who have posted something, and rather than just say, like, you're wrong, I would just say, can you expound upon that, please? Like, just go into more detail. And obviously they can't because they did not do research. I'm like, well, don't present something as a fact if you are not informed on that fact. Like, you're dumb. That just makes you look stupid. And it also makes you not credible. If you want to start speaking on issues and speaking on facts and whatever, the more credible you are, the more people you will reach and who will listen to, and the wider audience you can have.
Huh, I feel that, like, on so many different levels. Kind of winding down. There's like it's been said multiple times. Like there's just so much access to information at our fingertips, like just all the time. Like on my phone, on the computer, tablet, like whatever. Why is it that people are just refusing to look stuff up for themselves? Like, is it simply I want to find something that agrees with what I already think? Like, or is like, and that's a real question. Like, is it simply that? I feel like there has to be more because simply I just want something to agree with me is like just one of the most asinine things that I've ever heard. So why aren't people like just like why?
I think there's a number of things. I think a lot of people, one, you would be shocked at how many people get angry at being proven wrong and do not want to be wrong. And that itself can be enough, that you will not seek out any information that proves you wrong. And then there's people who are raised in certain ideologies. And I see this a lot because I did a lot of talking and reaching out to evangelical Christianity and evangelical Christians. And I'm talking like the far off evangelical Christians. And they're raised to not seek out any sources that aren't approved. And when you're raised in that mindset for a very young age, and this goes even beyond just that sect, there are people who are raised as children to think Fox News is the only news. And when that's all you've known for a long time, you don't think to look anywhere else. So you don't get any other points of view. And then I think there's just some people that know they're probably wrong and don't care because they just like to spread garbage.
That's that's
And
interesting.
there's some people that are just, I think, are just crazy.
Yeah,
Some people generally are not right in the head.
I know
Will
somebody
spread
who
nonsense, like Jewish space lasers starting the wildfires in California.
that's wild. Like,
I
but
know,
you
and
know,
it's a congresswoman who believes that.
hey,
I mean, there's a lot more than
you
just
can be
a
anything you want when you
There's a lot
grow
more
up.
than that.
Like that's what they told us, right? Like be whatever you want to be. You're the point that you were just saying though. I actually know one person in particular that I'm talking about, but I know a couple people who, as they were like around me and other people who thought differently than them, I saw them engaging in conversation, still being frustrated about being wrong, but getting an understanding and learning like, okay, the way I view things is completely different than the way they do things. And it's not so much that I'm right or they're right, it's just my understanding and my perspective. And this person recognized that, hey, maybe there's some things that I do and say that are a little racist. I'm not trying to be racist, but that's the end result. Let me work on this. And then this person left that environment, got back around their old environment, and got back to their old ways. And so it speaks volumes on how much our environment plays into who we ultimately become and then how we respond to things. How being removed from an environment leads us to explore different avenues. But I don't think you went yet, Chris, on this one. On the
I think there's an argument to be made about abundance of information.
Mhm.
There's a lot of information out there in the world right now, especially with the internet. Internet is a great tool to spread information. It's exactly what it's meant for: communication and information dissemination. But with that, it is very easy to enter a world where there is so much information that when you go to find what you're looking for, it's like taking a drink from a fire hose. There's so much there, there's so much to take in when you're looking for a very specific thing, but you can't really get to that specific thing without combing through mountains of information. Sure, like we talked about earlier, there's plenty of stuff that we can literally just Google, like we have, the knowledge that rivals the Library of Alexandria in the palms of our hands. Like there is a lot to be said about just being lazy, but there is also something to be said about the abundance of information in the world and sifting through it to find what is credible, what is not credible, what is relevant anymore, because there's plenty of stuff that just isn't relevant anymore. It puts a lot of burden on the user to find these things. And like I said earlier, if you don't really care, you're not going to search very hard. I think that those people that are very loud and yelling and they find their one piece of information that supports that one thing they said, they don't actually care. People that we have this abundance of information, we don't care enough, and with that, we're becoming more uninformed by acting as if we're informed.
Powerful.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because if you didn't, I would the idea of the abundance of information. Because that's what I think, Charles, when you were like, I just don't get it. We have all these resources. my first thought was, we have all of these resources.
Overwhelming.
There's so many things, and it's so easy to do it too. It's so easy to go and make your own blog or whatever and just say whatever you want to say on it. And if enough people listen to you, you get a blue check mark, and now you're viewed as this super reliable and credible source. So yeah, I really think that abundance is one of the big reasons that we see this kind of idea of, I'm just going to say this and I didn't really look it up or research it enough.
Yeah, that's,
With that, we also get, sort of like an attack on things that help try to streamline, right? Like there was the continued, hatred towards Wikipedia, right? There was a time period where, you still can, anybody can edit Wikipedia, right? But the big thing is that like Wikipedia is not itself a source, right? Any college class, I'm pretty sure you still do. Shit, I'm approaching 30. I haven't been in high school for a minute. I don't know if high schools are still teaching research, but I have taken college research 101, and places like libraries, encyclopedias, and Wikipedia are not sources. They are, a library, and at the bottom in blue hyperlinks are your sources, right?
yeah.
But, there is still, to this day, constant, Wikipedia is not a source, Wikipedia is not a source. No, you're right. I provided you the Wikipedia link that has the sources. Like, you could go click on them yourself. And that goes back to the whole, caring bit. If you care enough, you'll click on the sources. But we do plenty as well as a society to keep each other uninformed. And tinfoil hat time, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people way up that make a lot of money or have a lot of money that have all the power, that like it that way. So.
Yeah. That just means that people like me and Jesse are necessary because we refuse to let people remain ignorant.
And it's not easy. I'm sure you feel it too. The fatigue you get sometimes trying to educate someone can be really hard, but there is a sort of satisfaction in knowing that you're not the one that deleted them.
Yeah, I take fairly frequent breaks. They're not always like the same length, but sometimes I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna stay off social media for like the next 2 days. I'm gonna stay off for 5 days, or just a couple hours. Like, just a couple hours. You know how many people I'm not educating in that time? And
I'm such a clown. I say that same thing. I'll be like, I'm staying off of social media for 2 days. I will not debate anyone. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, but what if someone's saying something ignorant?
Oh, I'm gonna move into our last point. And you guys have already both said ignorance is not bliss. I would disagree. I think that all ignorance isn't bliss, but there are some, like, not like when I learned that according to the research, you find out that there's probably somebody in your neighborhood being trafficked right now. Like, I was blissfully ignorant of that because it's something that sucks to know. Granted, the knowing of it puts me in a position to where it's like now I can help it, but knowing it is just like, oh, it's such a drag, like ultimately. But the question is, the old saying goes, ignorance is bliss. How do we get ourselves as a people to find bliss in information? Like in truth and in facts, not just our own feelings and opinions. There's this guy that I listen to every now and then, Ben Shapiro, and don't look at me that way. I just listen to him every now and then, and he often says facts don't care about your feelings, but it's like the exact opposite of the way he speaks. Like he says that, and then he'll present facts through the filter. He's like just a big op-ed, like
Is op-ed.
like, but he presents them as facts. So how do we get to this place where people like actual facts and information and truth and like enjoy it, find happiness in it, find peace and solace? Like, how do we get to that place? Or is it just something that we should give up on? Please
So-
don't everybody speak at once.
So, to start off with, ignorance is bliss, right? What is the definition of bliss, right? To reach a state of perfect happiness, oblivious of everything. So, being ignorant is not bliss. Being ignorant is shoving your head in the sand,
Touche.
right? Because at the end of the day, if you're ignorant of the facts and those facts are still harming other people or preventing people from, expanding in themselves, then happiness has not been achieved. Maybe your personal happiness because you're not burdened with information, but oh darn, how dare you be burdened by knowing, right? There are people who have done a lot more than look up on Google and sacrifice a whole lot more than having to eat crow and say, okay, I was wrong. Then, the
Quick
myth
question
is that
before you go
Odin
to your
gave up
next
his
thing.
eye. Go ahead.
My apologies.
You're good.
With what you just said, would you then suggest that each individual has a responsibility to educate themselves?
Absolutely.
Okay, continue. I just wanted to.
Especially if we're talking about Americans who are going to be voting and voting for people who are going to be making major decisions on these opinions that you have, these half-researched opinions. Yes, absolutely. It is your obligation, your absolute duty to be educated when you vote. Because if you just willfully ignorance is bliss vote, and that vote ends in the continuation of allowing rehabilitation camps for gay kids in Illinois, then yeah, you are hurting somebody with your ignorance. Wonderful, great. I don't care where you stand on gay or homosexuality or LGBTQ plus. Like, at the end of the day, if you're hurting somebody with your vote, yeah, you're at fault. That person's pain is your responsibility because you did not do your research before you voted. So absolutely, it is your personal responsibility to do
You're going for
your
the jugular today, huh? Proceed.
own. To be 100% honest, I forgot the original question. I've just been talking.
And how do we get people to fall in love with being educated and information?
You don't.
Copy.
That's a personal thing. You have to personally be ready for that. You have to personally be involved in that. We have 1,000 teachers in the states that are constantly trying to spark an interest in education and whatnot into kids. And the system's rigged from the start because our education system's crap, to be quite frank. And so you've got these teachers with huge amounts of passion to do exactly what they want to do, and plant a seed in kids' brains to research, to study, to be intrigued in things. And you can't do that. Ultimately it's a personal thing, right? Like, if the teachers can't do it, you and me, we certainly aren't going to do it.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Oh, Jesse didn't go? Oh, man, look at me.
I've been talking this whole time.
Look,
I've been
man.
rattling. Like,
As I was saying, it's been great hearing from both of you. Thank you for joining us. Jesse, will you close with this? Go ahead, Jesse.
I mean, kind of agreeing with Chris. There are some people Oh god, I almost put a Dragon Ball Z. Do you remember the Cell games where Gohan, Android 16 throws his head? He's like, Gohan, there are some that words cannot reach. I literally was about to say that. But it's true. There are some people.
The whole lot of us.
There's some people that you cannot change their minds. They're not going to research. That's true. But I think you have to try. And I don't necessarily mean that you need to hop on the internet and interact with strangers, because 99.999% of the time it's not going to work. I know that. I do it all the time. I'm not going to change their mind. But if you have someone in your life who you are close to, you can take the time to attempt to get them to be someone who is more compassionate, more ready to actually engage in thoughtful conversation, who will actually research their points. Like, you can do that. I have changed people's minds. Like, I have gotten people to go out and actually start researching, to realize things like, hey, you clicked on enough of these articles on your Facebook. Now everything on your Facebook is going to be catered to that point of view. Like, you need to do more independent research. So I think there is a individual responsibility that you have to put in the effort. I put in the effort all by myself. No one had to come to me and say, Jessica, you're stupid and uninformed. Start looking up your points. I just wanted to be well informed, and I've always felt that way. But at the same time, you can also be an influence on people. Like I said, I just can't. I can't let people live. If I cannot try, I don't necessarily always succeed, and sometimes I do just give up, but I have to try to get people to not be so ignorant and actually put in effort. If you want to have an opinion on something, then you need to be well informed and have actual facts that back your opinion. And if your opinion can't be backed by facts, then change it.
That's the thing, huh? Nobody wants to change opinions.
No one wants to admit they're wrong, and no one wants to have to say that they're wrong. People hate saying, like, oops, I was uninformed on this, but I've changed my mind after doing research. They hate it, which is stupid, because I think that shows a sign of a very mature, well-spoken, intellectual person, that you're able to admit that you're wrong because you went and looked at
emotionally healthy, like all of those things. All right, so we're gonna try this again. Thank you both for joining us so much for this wonderful conversation. I really wanted it to be good, and I think it exceeded all of my expectations. And I think that we for sure got two of the three best people we could have possibly gotten for the job. There's only one other person who I would have loved to see up here, but he'll be with us Thursday, and I'm really looking forward to that. But thank you both so much for coming and sharing your feelings, your opinions, your research, your favorite alternative facts. Dang, did we share our favorite alternative facts?
No, we didn't.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, let's hear your guys' alternative facts.
I know mine. Mine used to be the gift that keeps on giving, which is that is yet to happen. But I think my favorite one now is that the 45th president is still the 45th president, and he's actually like the 13th president, something like that. I think that's my favorite because it's so well thought out and written out. Yet it still doesn't hold water. Yeah,
there's a new day every month that he's going to be taking over.
Right, it's the new gift that keeps on giving. So that's my favorite. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I can't even really think of any off the top. I guess, like, y'all are more. I thought I was, like, really into the world of conspiracy theories, but it seems like y'all know more than I do, and I'm willing to admit that. Goodness gracious, but I had no clue that Jewish lasers,
Space
Jewish space lasers,
Star Wars type stuff.
And then 9/11 didn't happen.
Yeah.
I can say that my favorite one out of the three that y'all have said is some combination of all three of them.
Because they all do exist at once.
Man. I'm gonna have to like think about it really long, and then I'll put it in the comments.
Sounds like QAnon is your favorite alternative fact. We'll just go with that.
I mean, QAnon is pretty lit. Like, it is.
Y2K.
Oh, Paul, man.
Y2K was
I was so scared as a little kid.
I was terrified. Like I remember it vividly, thinking the world is about to end. Like, yo, this is it. Like, soon as the clock strikes midnight, done.
And I just want you all to remember when we're talking about giving your COVID vaccines their microchips, it was Bill Gates was all behind Y2K. It was all because everybody couldn't handle the fact that Microsoft was going to need to do some sort of, the clocks on Microsoft, they were all going to roll back over to like 1960 something, whatever. It's all Bill Gates' fault. He saved the world.
That's like exactly what I heard. But I want to thank you for speaking because you just helped me think of my favorite alternative fact. Or at least I think, what I'm going to say right now. That the whole coin shortage thing that was caused by COVID, which comes from China, the coin shortage was so that they could track our money and our spending habits because the government wants to control us. Like, I remember the first time I saw anybody saying that, I thought it was a joke. Like, I didn't realize that it was something that people actually believed because it's like, my guy, you've had a credit card since like when? Like, you have your credit card on your phone. Like, I don't think we need like all the things that you think we need. So I think that's probably going to be my favorite one because it's so not well thought out. It's like you have to try to be dumb enough to believe it. Like, and that's why I love it so much. But we're going to move into final thoughts before the conversation lasts too much longer. You guys know what final thoughts is. For any of our viewers out there who do not, our final thoughts is when we give our guests and we ourselves take a minute to share what it is that we want you guys to take away from the conversation. So if nobody heard anything else, what is it you want them to take away from this conversation, Miss Jessica?
Oh, why do I have to go first? Just kind of piggybacking off what Chris said, you are responsible to be educated and informed. So if there is a subject matter that you want to speak on, you better start doing your research. Like, you have to. It is your job, especially if you've just watched this podcast. You have no excuse now to not do your research. And also, since we did talk about the microchip, I did get the coronavirus vaccine, and I promise I'm not microchipped. I did not download a U2 album. Like, all's good.
But how would you know?
Not that I know. If I start behaving like a cyborg, I will let people know.
But that's the trick. You won't know because the cyborg has taken over you.
I mean, I watched the needle go into my arm, and I did not see any microchip.
Oh,
That I know.
They wouldn't make it visible.
You're going to go back and forth on this for a minute.
Okay, Chris.
You can go back and forth all day. Research is important. Your opinion is important. But you don't always have to give your opinion if you don't actually care. Sometimes it's better to be silent and let those who've done their research speak. It's okay. It's okay to not know. It is. It's not okay to not know, to care, and to continue to be uneducated. And always research the other side, because you might find out something that you didn't know. I can't tell you how many times I've done research and I was very steadfast in what I believed until I came across something and I was like, wait, what?
That's facts. That's happened to me a ton.
Here you go. For everybody, your first research spark for research. Woodrow Wilson was the worst president. Go find out why.
Oh, I've heard that before. Okay. How we going?
It's funny because I was thinking that as you were speaking, I was like, Woodrow Wilson's the worst president. I'm going to say that. No, I'm not going to say it. And then you said it.
So, for me, my final thought is it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to admit that you're wrong and then do whatever work you need to do to find out what the truth is. Coming from I went to Liberty University, and so, and this is also like a religion thing. You kind of just take what you were told by not only your professors but pastors and everyone else at the school as fact because they are of this authority in this university, in fact, because they're of some sort of authority in your religion. But leaving Liberty and really getting out into the world and being confronted with so many different things and ideas, I've said, oh, like a ton. And then actually went and read something or talked to someone who's lived through something and gained new knowledge and have been able to say, like, okay, I was wrong about this. I used to think this way, and that's not it. And it's hard. I've had to do that, with my wife on a few things, and nobody likes being wrong with their stuff. but you have to, and that's okay. And I feel so much better knowing that, okay, I used to think this way, but I understand it's wrong, and now I think that way. And I think there is a little bit of bliss in that. There's a little bit of freedom in that. So yeah, that's my final thought. It's okay to be wrong about something. Go ahead and learn what you need to learn to be right about it from this point forward.
Okay, final thoughts. What I want people to take away from this conversation is that Kanye West is the undisputed GOAT of music, period.
We talked about
James
wasting
Brown.
oxygen a lot.
James Brown.
Nah. If you haven't been following along, I bring up Kanye West at least once an episode just to do things to him. It makes him cringe a little bit. But I really do think Kanye West is the GOAT. What I want people to take away from this conversation is not only is it acceptable, but it's very human to be wrong. Right? Like Dom said, find that freedom in the whole being wrong thing. Find your humanity in being wrong. And then show how humane you can be by educating yourself so that, as Chris referenced earlier, you don't make decisions that are hurting other people. Because that's ultimately what happens. We have our own feelings, our views, our beliefs, but they're not rooted in fact or opinion. And we share them, we spread them, we enforce them to the detriment of other people. I've heard so many times throughout my life, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie, which I understand it, but I personally believe that while the number itself might not be lying, it can be misrepresented. So be mindful of facts being misrepresented. There's a such thing as the whole truth, right? And if you only get half of the truth, then you gotta lie. So be very cautious and wary and intentional about where you go to get your information, who your sources are. Like I think all of y'all said it. My mom used to tell me all the time, like, ain't nobody's mouth the Bible. Which was in reference to the fact that just because this teacher or professor or doctor said it doesn't mean that they were right. And then one thing that didn't get brought up that I want to kind of say a little bit on is, if somebody tells you something that's wrong, bring it up to them. Maybe they didn't mean to tell you something wrong. They got bad information as well. Like maybe they don't want to live in ignorance. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave it. And I'm gonna close this out in some prayer, and then we can be out of here. Oh, God, we thank you for this opportunity to just have actually a really dope conversation with some really dope people. Pray that this conversation would go all the different places that you created it to go, and that it would do what it's supposed to do, that we would learn to inform ourselves, get educated through the research, just put in that work. Sometimes it's more work than we want to put in, but it's often not as much as we think it to be. And so I just pray that we would do the work. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. We will be back for the rest of the week, continuing this conversation on the lost art of research. Stay tuned. See you later.